National Affairs Editor Leela Jacinto joins me on set to talk more about this. Leela, this effort then for a ceasefire comes at kind of a tricky time. We've heard from the Israeli army chief who hinted at a ground invasion in Lebanon when he was speaking to troops. Tell us more about the diplomatic effort then for a cease in hostilities.
I mean, what we are seeing is a classic drums of war and calls for peace. And who's going to win in the short term? This is of critical importance. You know, you mentioned the Israeli army chief, General Herzi Halevi. He made this statement on Wednesday to his troops, telling them to be prepared for a ground invasion. He made it to the Israeli troops, and it was also a message that was directed at the international community, because this was a taped message. And this had some pretty strong language. He talked about military boots being on enemy terrain. Now, of course, the international community is making frantic efforts to stop this. And the US and France, of course, is leading this initiative. This all is happening in New York, where fortuitously, world leaders have gathered for the UN General Assembly meeting. So there are a lot of efforts going on in New York right now. Now, on the ceasefire deal, actually, there's very few details. They're talking about 23 days, a ceasefire along the blue line. This is the UN demarcation line between Israel and Lebanon for the cessation of hostilities there. And they are hoping that this pause would lead to diplomatic efforts to resolve long-standing issues in the Israel-Lebanon conflict. And there are also hopes that this break will be used to jumpstart the Gaza ceasefire efforts, because Israel has got another war against Hamas in Gaza. Now, a Gaza ceasefire deal would be an obvious off-ramp to this conflict, because Hezbollah's terms has been, in order to stop its crossfire in firing into Israel, it wants a Gaza ceasefire deal. This is something that the international community also wants, but as we have seen for months, this has been extremely hard to arrive at. Now, coming back to the latest deal, what details we have, and this is coming from US officials speaking on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly summit, they say that this deal will be between Israel and the Lebanese government, not Hezbollah. US officials have said that the Lebanese government will get Hezbollah to comply with its acceptance and to coordinate its acceptance. And this is where France can actually play an important role. You know, France has historic ties with Lebanon. It feels a moral obligation to the Lebanese people as a former colonial power. But even more so, and this is important, is that France speaks to all players. So later this week, we have the new French Foreign Minister, Jean-Noël Barrot, who is going to be heading to Lebanon to try to get the ceasefire deal accepted. But earlier this week, we had a former foreign minister, French foreign minister, in town in Lebanon, Jean-Yves Le Drian, and he met with Lebanese army chiefs as well as Lebanese caretaker prime minister. Now, Jean-Yves Le Drian is actually working on what in France we call a different dossier. It's called the Lebanese presidential vacuum dossier. Lebanon has not had a president for 2 years now, basically because Parliament, which elects the Lebanese president, who has to be from the Lebanese Christian community, Parliament has been divided between two candidates. One candidate is supported by Hezbollah, and politicians who are opposed to Hezbollah do not support this candidate. So Le Drian was in town really to try to work this crisis, to hammer out some agreement. But it shows that, you know, France does have a negotiating power with Hezbollah, because at the heart of all of this is Hezbollah's weapons. You know, this is also underlying this issue, because Israel's condition is it wants to see the return of hundreds of thousands of its residents to northern Israel, since these people have been displaced by Hezbollah firing since October 7th.